The Vav Amud Aleph. So we've been discussing the machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva, where the Rabbanan hold that, well, let's start like this. Like we said, there are 4 graduations of the whiteness of a Mitzayra. There's the Baharis, which is snow white, followed by Se'es, and this is the physical order of their whiteness. So there's the Baharis, followed by the Se'es, which is wool, followed by the 2 Sapachasin, which are Sid Heichel, the lime color of the Heichel, followed by the last, which is Krumbeya, which is egg white, the whites of an egg, or the membrane of an egg. That is some part of the whiteness of an egg. And that's the 4 from the most white to the least white. And the Chachamim say that this gets divided up, that Beheres and Se'es are the 2 Avos, and the Tilda of Beheres is Sid Heichel, and the Tilda of Se'es, so the Tilda of Beheres is Sid Heichel, the Tilda of Se'es is the Krumbeya. And that's the way they're going to combine, as far as when you're going to want to put together, if you have less than the shear of 1, you could put together the 2 tildes. The 2 avos go together, but you can't put together the 2 tildes, and you can't put together each tilde with the other one's av. It has to be, you can only combine a tilde with its av or the 2 avos. That's a chum. Rabbi Kiva said, Zula Ma'ilamizu, Zula Ma'ilamizu. Rabbi Kiva said, we have this order, and we follow one after the other, and each one combines with the one above it and below it. But as the Gemara explained on the top of Amud, Davav Amud Aleph, there's an exception to this. This is not, Rabbi Kiva doesn't mean to say this is always the case. It's consistently so, because Rabbi Kiva darshans that sapachas are both going on seis. When the Torah says seis, la seis, la sapachas, la baharas, so sapachas follows seis, that means that the 2 tildes are both tildes of seis, meaning both krumbeya as well as sid heichel. They're both tildes of seis, and therefore they both combine with seis. And that's so. And then when the Torah says, when we say shtaim shem arba in our Mishnah, it means there are two avos, which are beheres and seis, and 2 tildes, which are sid heichel and krumbeya. But the 2 tildes are not from the 2 avos. The 2 tildes, according to Rabbi Kiva, are both from seis. That's Rabbi Kiva Shita. Now, we just started with saying that the Rabbi Kiva says Zu Zeh, but the question is, where do we get this from? Where do we know that this is the Shita of Rabbi Kiva? So that's what the Gemara is going to now address. Where do we get this from? That Rabbi Kiva holds that one follows the other. Am Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, Shol Yeshua b'nei Shel Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yeshua, who is the son of Rabbi Kiva, asked Rabbi Kiva, he asked him, why is it say Maris Nagoyim Ashnaim Shem Arba? Amaloi, Bim Lav Ma Yomru. He said, what's your question? What would you prefer that they say? So Rabbi Yeshua said, Yomru Mikrum Beyo Lamayla. Instead of saying that the Maris Nagoyim are Shtayim Shem Arba, 2 avos and 2 tildes, just say that everything above a krumbeya, which we said is the darkest of the 4 types of Maris Nagoyim, the 4 types of whites, let's say everything that's whiter than that, from a krumbeya and above, everything above that is going to be a mitzayra, a beheres, a tzaras, a white tzaras, and you're going to be, all of them are going to be tameh, and anything below that is what they call a boyak, that's not white enough to be a tzaras. So Yomer Mikrum Be'elamaylo Tamei. Just say everything above that is Tamei. Amaloi, so Rabbi Akiva said back to him, no, I can't, we couldn't say that. While it's true, if you said that, it would be accurate. Those are the four things that are Tamei, but we have to say Shtaim Shem Arba in order to tell you that they're mitzdarf one with the other. That, like we said, that if you have less than the shear of one, you give mitzdarf with another. Amar Loi, so he says, so Rabbi Yeshua said back to Rabbi Akiva, we said, so why do you have to say Shtaim Shem Arba in order to tell you that there's a aspect of being mitzdarf? Let's say that everything from the krumbeya ulamayla is tamei, and then mitzdarf zemzeh. So, and Rabbi Akiva essentially accepts this suggestion. Let's say krumbeya ulamayla tamei mitzdarf zemzeh. Amalei lo'em lecha kol kain she'eni baki behen mishvesein eni rayas in a guy. We have to say this. The reason why it's not enough to just say Krumbei Lamaila umitzdarfen zemzeh is to tell you that we want to know that we want to tell you that a kayin is the one who has to inspect the tzaras, so he has to be able to distinguish between these four different types. So that's why we have to say Shtaim Shem Arba and list them out to tell you that if a kohen doesn't know the specifics of them, that he's not going to be able to be the inspector. But that was his only problem with Rabbi Yeshua's suggestion to say mikrum be'elamayil mitzdarfen zelzeh v'ilu mitzid heichel lamayil le'kamar. But he didn't say all. His only issue was he said that it would have been fine if it would have just said. Rabbi Yeshua said, let it just say everything from Krumbei Lamaila and it's mitzdarf. But he doesn't, Rabbi Akiva doesn't object and say, no, you have to divide it up again. In addition to saying Krumbei Lamaila or mitzdarf, and you also have to say, according to the way the Rabbanan understand it, that we are mitzdarf the avos with the toildus. So we should say Krumbei Lamaila is mitzdarf, as well as Misid Heichel L'mayla mitzdarf, meaning that each one is mitzdarf with its av. But the fact that he lumps them all together, Rabbi Yeshua lumps them all together. He says everything from Krum Beya Ulamayla can be mitzdarf. It's mashma. Each one is mitzdarf with the ones next to it, which is Rabbi Akiva's shita. Midaloi Amalei Shmamina the Shmiel Rabbi Akiva Damakula Bahadi Sheitz mitzdarfen. From the fact that Rabbi Akiva does not subdivide it, but rather he says that everything mikrumbei l'mayla is mitzdarf. He means to say that both the sid heichel as well as the krumbeya are mitzdarf to the seis, and the seis itself is also mitzdarf to the beheres. So therefore, that's why he doesn't subdivide and say that the avos are mitzdarf with the toldus. No. Maybe maybe when Rabbi Yeshua said to him that it should be mitzdarf krum be'o l'mayla, he meant to say the seis. He meant to say it's not just saying that the krum be'ya should be mitzdarf to its telda, but what he really was saying is that as well as say that the Sid Heichel should be mitzdarf with the beheres. It means his suggestion, even though it didn't say that in the Gemara, even in the Bryce, it didn't say that. What he was really suggesting is like what the Rabbanan said. So that was the actual words of that. That's what the Gemara is saying. That so we can't bring a raya from there because maybe that is actually what Rabbi Yeshua is saying. The Gemara just said it in a shorthand. So we're still left with a question. Where do we see that Rabbi Akiva holds that we say Zula Maila Mizu? Elamedur Chanina, the Amr of Chanina, Mashal de Rabbi Akiva Lamada Avadayma. What is the sheet of Rabbi Akiva like? La'arba koitza shel cholov. So we've been talking until now about a baharis, about a different saras, where a person has a white appearance to it. And we said there are 4 levels of the whiteness, which is baharis, seis, sidhechel, and krumbeya. Now, the Gemara says there's a variant of that, which is a whiteness that has a reddish tint to it. So that's what we're talking about. So, according to Rabbi Kiva, what is this similar to? When you have a whiteness that has a reddish tint to it. It's like 4 cups of milk. One has 2 drops of blood in it. And one has 4 drops of blood in it. One has 8 in it. One has 12 in it. Tipin. 12 drops. And some say 16 drops. So if you say 16 drops, it makes sense. It goes up exponentially, right? It goes 2, 4, 8, 16. It's doubles each time. The 12 is a little harder to understand. It goes 2, 4, 8, 12. So it's like a irregular difference.
Standard measurement for a place?
I'm sorry?
Standard measurement for a place?
I don't know. So I guess there was, that we're all, it means an equivalent amount. I think it just means, I don't know, I guess you're right. What is exactly a kais that was saying that as the way to tell what it is? I guess they were referring maybe Revius. It's a typical kais. So in any case, that was what Rabbi Akiva said were the 4 different types of what's called a pasuach, which is a reddish type of version of these whitenesses. So we say shekulan marus lovenhain. They're all different types of whiteness, this reddish whiteness. But this is the crucial part. We end up with saying, except that this one is a little bit better, is more than this one, and this one is more than this one. So you see over here, as far as this reddish version, this pasuach version of the Maris Nagoyim, the white Maris Nagoyim, Rabbi Kiva is saying that you go one after the other, not that it's divided into 2 avos and 2 teldos, or rather Zula Mailam Mizu, Vizula Mailam Mizu, which Rabbi Kiva, which we said, that means that each one is mitzdaref with the one above it and the one below it. It's like the Mara Amen the Shamalei Rabbi Kiva, but Pasach, maybe that's he only said that Lagabi the reddish tints. We're not discussing the reddish tints. We're talking about the pure whites. Do we know that just because he said that you say Zel Mizeh by the Basuach, by the reddish tints, do we say that by the pure whites, or the different varieties of pure white, without any reddish in it, would he say that? And if you say, okay, we didn't say it by chalak, but we'll assume that he holds the same thing, just like he holds by the reddish tints, he'll say it also by the white without red. So the Mara Basuach Gufa Mishamadle. Do we even know that he holds this by the reddish tints? V'atanya, v'atnan, Rabbi Kiva Omer, Adamden, which is Pasuach, which is a reddish type of Maris Nagoyim, Shebezeh, v'Shebezeh, and this one and that one. Ki yayin hamazik b'mayim. It's like wine that's mixed into water. As Shalbaheres, as a kasheleg, but the only difference is that the whiteness of the Beheres, which is what we've said, the strongest white, the purest white, is white like snow. B'shel sid deyahemen, and that of the sid heichel is a little bit weaker than it. It's not as white. So they both have the same. According to Rabbi Kiva, we're saying over here, he says the redness is the same, but the difference is in the whiteness. That means doesn't have greater and lesser amounts of reddishness in them. The question is how white it is. But Rabbi Kiva, in saying that, he says that the next thing underneath Baharis is Sid Heichel. And according to what we're saying, by the whiteness, or like we were saying by the redness, we said that Zelamayla Mizah means that underneath Beharis is Se'es. It goes Beharis, Se'es, Sid Heichel, and Krombeya. But now we're saying that Beharis, underneath Beharis is Sid Heichel. Then Isa shall tzema di'ayman mi ba'ile. If you're saying that Rabbi Akiva holds that it's Zulamayla Mizu by Adamdam, by Pesuach, by the redness, it should say that Tzemera immediately underneath Beharis. Amri Eina Chanami. Gemara says you're right. This is actually an incorrect version of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva does not say that the Sid Heichel is below the Beharis. Rather, he does say the Seis is below, that Shal Tzemer is below the Beharis of Azak Hashalit. But Tanya, and I'll show you in a brisa that says it. Rabbi Nosson, I'm a loisha Amar Rabbi Akiva shall Sid Deyemena, El Shal Tzemer Deyemena. Rabbi Nosson says that the correct version is Rabbi Akiva says underneath the Beharis is Sid, not Sid, but rather is Shal Tzemer because he says Zelamayl Lizu. So now we have our raya. We'll say that Rabbi Akiva does say Legabe Pasuach, Legabe Adamdam, that Zelamayla Mizeh, and we'll say by the ones without Adamdam, the straight white Maris Nagoyim, it's also going to be Zelamayla Mizeh. Okay, fine. I think we're out of the woods. Now we're back into straight limudim about this. We're not in the machlekes anymore, Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbah. So tomorrow, we know in the Beharis Azahi. How do we know in our list of the 4 graduates of the white Maris Nagoyim, how do we know that Beharis is the strongest, the cleanest white? Amar Abaya, Amar Krav, and Beharis Laveinahi. He Laveina, Veina Cheres Laveina. The pasuk says if it's a white Beharis, so by saying that it's a white Beharis, it means that that's the most white of the whites. Like it was like the mirror. It's reminding me, who is the fairest of them all? Who is the whitest of them all? The Beharis is the whitest of them all. I don't think I could ever learn with like kids. They wouldn't know half of what I'm talking about.
It's the 4 shades of white.
Right. No, I think that the new Snow White is not white. Right.
But
She's black.
Right. So it wouldn't work. The reference wouldn't work. Tanraban. Beharis Amuka. The Beharis, meaning what we just said, white, the whitest of them is Amuka, it's deeper. That means that when you look at something that's very white, it looks like it's recessed. That's what the pasuk says, that the appearance of the white of the Beharis is deeper than the skin. Because of the whiteness, it's so white, it looks like it's empty. So it's open. Kamar Chama Amuka Minatzel. Just like when you look at the sun, it looks like it's lower than what's around it in the shade. I guess not really. It means when the light of the sun, it always looks like the shade sticks out and the white part is lower. Then the pasuk continues. So that's Beharis. Beharis is the widest. She'es is the next widest. Ein she'es ala gavoya. She'es is higher. So that means because, like we said, Beharis is the widest, is the lowest. So She'es, which is next, is a little bit raised. So Seis, and the meaning of Seis is higher. On top of all the high mountains, and on top of the heights that are higher up. So that's Seis is something that's less darker than Beharis, and that's why it's called higher. Then we said Sapachas. Sapachas we said is the Teldus. The Telda, it's a machlekes of what is it? It's a Telda, the 2 Teldas of the Seis and Beharis, or if it's both of the Telda of the Seis. Ein Sapachas el Tefela. The meaning of the word Sapachas is an adjunct, something that's tafel, it's extra. That Shmuel said to Eli that your children are not going to get the kahuna gedola, and they're going to have to say, let us be just part of a different mishmar as an extra. Ashkachan tchela l'seis tfela lebeharis minalan. So the Gemara is going now in the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say, right, that Se'es, Beheres, the topple of Beheres is Sid Heichel. And the topple to Se'es is Krumbeya. And the Pasuk says, La Seisul HaSapachas Ola Baharas. So it puts Sapachas after Se'es. So how do we know that there's a topple to the Beheres? We only said a topple to the Se'es. Amar Rav Zera Nemra Levena b'Seis. It says white by Seis. V'Nemra Levena b'Beheres. Ma Levena Amura b'Seis Yesh Lo Tefela. Av Levena Amura b'Beheres Yesh Lo Tefela. Since we use the lashon Levena, so that is mashma that they both are equivalent, that they both have a tilde. But Masnisa Tane Hitel HaKotzel L'Tavachas Bein Seis LeBeheres. According to the Rabbanan, why do we put Sapachas between Seis and Beheres if we're saying that it's referring to two different teldas, one telda of Beheres and one of Sapachas? He has a different explanation. He doesn't say Levena. He says it was put in between them to say that each one has a Sapachas, each one has a telda. Seis Ketzemeh Lavan. We said that Seis is like the white of the wool of a sheep. Maitzemeh Lavan. What's the white wool? Amra Bibi, Amra Vasi, Tzemen Noki Ben Yoimei, the pure wool of a day-old lamb, Shemechavim Boy Lamilas, that they cover it so that they can eventually use it to be a very fine, clean wool. So when you shear it, it's never going to have gotten dirty. So that's the level of white. Amra B'Chenina, Mashal the Rabbanan Lamahadavadaim. So the Rabbanan, like we said, they said that the Beheres has a tilde, and which is there's two parts, right? That there's four things: 1, 2, 3, 4. Beheres, Ace, Sid Loiven, Sid Heichel, and Krumbei, and that's the order of how white they are. But the order of the Av and the tilde is 1 matches to 3 and 2 matches to 4. The most white is the tilde, is the Av of the third most white, and the second most white is the Av, and the tilde is the fourth most white. So he says, Lama Davidam, what is it similar to? L'trei Malchi, l'trei Efriche. To two kings who have two people underneath them, two lower level people. Malchi Shazeh, Lamaila, Malchi Shazeh. So the Maila, the two kings, is one is above each other. And the underlings is underneath each underling. So if you're going to say it like that, the way you're saying it, it comes out that one king is higher than the next king, and then the two kings, and the Talmud, each one is, it's saying 1 is higher than 2 and 3 is higher than 4. So that's really Rebbe Akiva's pshat. That's not the Chum pshat. That's saying it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And the way the Rabbanan say it, it's 1, 3, and 2, 4. What it really means to say, the mashal is that each king is above its underling, and therefore it's similar to 1 is higher than 3 and 2 is higher than 4. It's like a king, and Rashi says a king is a king, and al-kafta is a different type of king. But a king is like an emperor, and al-kafta is more like a regular king. Rufila of Reish Galusa, and Rufila is the underling of the Malka, and Reish Galusa is the underling of al-kafta. So again, then you're saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Malka v'Rufila of al-kafta v'Reish Galusa. So we do it the other way around. We're saying the king and his underling, which is called a Rufila, and al-kafta, which is like, the Malka we said is like the emperor, the higher type of king, and his underling, and al-kafta is a regular king, and the Reish Galusa and his underling, which is the setup of the Rabban. Rava Malka v'Keser. Rava says that the two kings, that you can have two kings that are similar, like the Shvar Malka, which is one king, and the Keser, which is the Caesar in Rome. Two kings, but one is higher than the other. Amle Papa Rava Haiminayu. Which one is stronger? Amalei b'chorshek ha'achalei. Did you grow up in a forest? Are you like Tarzan? You don't know anything. Why go look out which between the Shvar Malka and the Caesar, which is whose coins are accepted throughout the world, right? It's like what is the reserve currency? As long as the dollar is the reserve currency, America is the superpower. When we start all using Chinese, whatever they use, what are they called?
Yens.
Yens. No, that's Japanese. The Chinese have something else. When we start using the Chinese currency, then we'll know that they're in charge. The Sivateichel Kol Ara, it says about Rome, they ate all the land, and they threshed it, and they ground it up. So he says Rome is clearly the boss. So their emperor is the Caesar, outranks whoever the Shvar Malka is. I'm Rabbi Shvar Malka. It's a name of someone. King.
Oh, it's a specific name.
Yeah. He was asking about the Caesar at the time, as opposed to Shvar Malka, which is I think like the Persian emperor. This is the evil Rome. All sorts of things. That their coins go throughout the whole world. Ravina says a third mashal. Lima the Amar b'shachke, like a cloak made out of wool, and it's ground up version or its worn out version. Sadina de Kisna, and a linen cloak, the Sachke, and its worn out version. So it's like a Aventel to Aventel. Okay, done with. You never thought that you'd look forward to going up to Tumah. Out of Maris Nagayim back to good old fashioned Tumah. We said that the carbon oil of a Yared goes for someone who knew beforehand that he was Tameh, and then he forgot, and he went into the Mikdash, or he ate kachim. Turn around. How do we know when the Torah says, right, it's coming from our pasuk, we have our parsha that we saw all the way at the beginning, and one of the things that included was someone who became Tameh. How do we know it's talking about someone who became Tameh and then went into the Mikdash, or he ate kachim? Maybe it just means becoming Tameh itself is Yemechoyev carbon oil of Yared. How do we know? It means that he then, after he became Tameh, he went into the Mikdash, or he ate kachim. Saktimara v'dinu. Since the Torah says that someone who became Tameh and bemazed then went into the Mikdash or ate kachim, he's going to be mechayev karas. Mechayev carbon ala tumah, and if he does it b'shaygig, he's a mechayev a carbon. Ma'akash yezer v'hanish ala tumah lehizer v'hanish ela al tumas mikdash kedashav. Now that we're saying that there's a carbon for doing it b'shaygig, we're going to say it's also only just like what the chiyuv b'mezid is only where after you became tamei, you went and you touched something of kachim, or you went into the mikdash. So too, this carbon oil of a yair that was saying when someone becomes tamei also is only referring to when you did something after becoming tamei. It's just like the chiyuv karas, which is only for doing it b'mezid when you not just for becoming tamei, but also doing something afterwards, going into the mikdash. So too, this carbon is only when you go do something after you become. Shehizer, it's coming to tell you when the Torah says that Yechayev a carbon oil of a yared for going into Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha. Maybe it also means Truma, because Truma also, the Torah says that there's a Azhara and a Einish, that someone, instead of Karas, if someone becomes Tameh and eats Truma, the Torah says you get Din Misa B'dei Shemayim. Misa b'dei shamayim, you should just keep in mind, is not as chomer as karas. Karas means that person dies early, and his children, unfortunately, will not live to adulthood. So, but einish of misa b'dei adam, misa b'dei shamayim, just means the person himself gets punished. But let's say, why don't we include truma also? Why, or say truma instead of trumas mikdash dashav? Truma also has shehizer anish. Zok Gemara, le'ashkan avoin misa dechayav ala carbon. So we said no. This is an avoin misa. We don't know. This is truma. You get misa b'dei shamayim, and we don't know. We don't know of a case where truma gets, you bring a carbon, meaning the carbon ilavi irid. Zok Gemara, ema hanimi carbon kavua. Maybe that which we say that there's no carbon for doing it b'shaygig, that's just that you don't bring a carbon chatas. Maybe you should bring the carbon ilavi irid. Just the truma doesn't have a carbon kavua, it doesn't have the regular chatas, but maybe you should have a carbon ilavi irid, even though it's a misa b'dei shamayim. Maybe misa b'dei also gets ilavi irid. Because in this parsha of ilavi irid, we're trying to figure out what when the Torah says that you're chayiv for becoming tameh, so suggesting maybe it means carbon tuma. I was saying no carbon. I'm sorry, but you're metame truma. Maybe, and the Gemara says, because the Gemara wants to say no, it can't mean truma because truma does not is a chiyav misa b'dei shamayim, and a misa b'dei shamayim doesn't bring along with it a carbon chatas. So the Gemara says maybe ilavi irid is different, because we say the other things that it says in this parsha of ilavi irid is shmiyah tzchel. If someone is asked to say edus by someone who is a victim, and he says, "I want you to say edus," and the guy denies knowing about it, and he really does. So say if he made a mistake, if he did this b'shaygig, he brings the carbon ilavi irid. Ba'bitay svasayim, like we said, a Shavuos bitoy where he said, I shua shalai oichal or shua sha'oichal. On those things we said that he bring a carbon ilavi irid, and those also do not bring a carbon chatas. Those are not things that you get karas for. And even so, we say they have an ilavi irid. So how do we know to exclude truma? Back in truma, it shouldn't be any worse. Just even though they're not chiyav a karas, you still bring an ilavi irid. So why not truma? So the Torah says, "Ba." What is the pasuk? What does it have to say? Ba for lemute truma. So the Gemara, "Ema ba lemute migdash delay sagi leba carbon ilavi irid adamaisi carbon kavua." Maybe the Gemara says no. Maybe the ba is coming to tell you that if he goes into the migdash while he's tamei, that he doesn't bring a adarabah to say he's excluded from carbon. I would have thought both truma and mikdash kedusha should be included. So that's what the pasuk is telling you. No, when he goes into the migdash, he's not going to bring a carbon ilavi irid. He's going to have to bring a carbon chatas because he's mechuyev karas b'mezid. So therefore, he gets a higher. A chatas is worse than a ilavi irid. A regular carbon chatas, you always have to bring a sheep, but a ilavi irid you could bring just flour if you're poor. Kari Rava led the Rebbe dailamayim mibaris hamukim. So Rava called the Rebbe someone who brings water from deep pits. It means he comes up with good pshatim. The Tanya, Rebbe Aimer, Ekra ani chaya. The Torah says, we said it legabi, nefesh hashatiga b'chol davar tamei, benivlas chaya tmeya. So first we say, but you touch a nevela b'chaya tmeya, benivlas behemet tmeya. Then we say behemet tmeya. Why don't we just say chaya, behema lam and nemra? Why does it have to say behema? Rashi explains that chaya and behema sometimes they can mean two separate things to separate between a chaya and behema, but the lashon chaya can also include behema. So why did it have to say behema? Nemra kan behema tmeya, v'nemra alam behema tmeya. It says also legabe eating from a shlamim when he's tamei. It says behema tmeya, mal alon tumas kaidish, and just like that, when talking about eating a shlamim, that's obviously kaddish. Afkan Tumas Kodesh. Also over here by the oil of a yard where he does it b'shaygig, we're saying he's going to bring. It's talking about someone who's tamei who eats Kodesh. Ashkan Tumas Kodesh, Tumas Mikdash Milan. The Gemara says, okay, so you took care of, since you made a comparison to Shlomim, that takes care of where he is tamei and touches Kachim. How about going into the base of Mikdash? How do you know that? The Gabe a Yeledes, it says she can't eat any Kachim. Kol Kodesh really means to eat. And she can't come into the Mikdash. It's because Mikdash l'Kodesh. So we see over there a hekesh of going into the Mikdash and eating Kodesh. Yachi Trumanami. Let's say, but by Yeledes, she's also prohibited from touching Truma. So let's say Truma is back in the game. Let's say it should also be Iskish the same way with learning Mikdash from Yeledes. Let's learn Truma also. L'gabi Aylavi Yared. Hamid Rahman Abba. The Torah said Ba. So Ba is coming to exclude Truma. Zaktamara Ema Ba Lamute Mikdash. How do you know Ba is being Mayat Truma? Let's say it's coming Mayat the Mikdash. No, the Mikdash, since the Mazid, it gets Karas, it's more likely that's included Aylav just like Kodesh. Let's not, you're saying that we should include Mikdash because it's Karas, let's say include Truma, even though it's not Karas, but it's also an Achila, just like eating Kodesh, eating Truma, you're also going to be Chayav for. Okay, so we're going to see a different shot after. Tomorrow we'll see the new shot, which goes for a while. Shkayach.